Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, sharpshooters. Now, have you ever looked at Voruna and thought to yourself, I wonder just how broken this warframe can get? Well, why don't we take this moment to answer that question? I'm Deadshot. Let's take a moment to break the game. And this time we're changing things up a little bit. Normally my format, we talk about the build first before I jump in and then show you guys how it works. I'm going to flip that around. This time I'm going to show you guys what the build can do, and then we're going to move on and talk about it for those nerds out there who want to know how the build actually works. And we're going to cast our abilities in a very specific pattern. That is going to make us invisible first. And then we're going to cast Roar, which I have swapped with her normal third, Lycanth's Hunt, because I found that the energy and health orb production from that wasn't quite as useful as having a little bit of extra damage. This build primarily utilizes Arcane Crept Secular to help make sure that we gain extra damage and extra god damn it, extra damage and extra ability strength upon being invisible. This allows Voruna to hit pretty hard. And we are combining that with the Cerberus build that you guys might recognize from the last video that we did with Oberon. It is the same Cerberus build. It was originally built to be paired with the Voruna here, to turn Voruna into an absolute nuke of a warframe. And so far I've been having a very mild level of success with that. I just wish I didn't mess up and let my energy get a little bit too out of hand. We are primarily utilizing her second to prime enemies and give them a bunch of status effects so that when they do get killed, they can spread a bunch and help take advantage of the Mecha set more thoroughly, as we are running all 4 pieces of the Mecha set. And then, of course, utilizing Roar, which we need to be out of our 4th in order to cast, in order to gain more damage and the ability to deal extra damage on our status effects, which we are dealing primarily slash effects. But there will also be a couple others thrown in there as well from using Fangs of Rakesh. And then basically, once you've kind of casted all your abilities at the beginning, using the energy that you get from preparation, if I was smarter about things. Status effect resistance is okay, but it's not quite as good as it could be. I don't have that here. Okay. We have a rolling guard to help try and dispel some of that, but there's only so much you can do, especially when you have like Leech Exami around, when they're sitting there draining your health and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So make sure you take them out as quickly as you can. Hit a few more enemies with Fangs, spread some status effects around. And we are also making use of Arcane Universal Fallout. Even though the status effects are rather inconsistent, it does seem like radiation does pop up fairly frequently. So I'm using that to try and help bolster our energy production. We're also going to be rocking Equilibrium in order to help build that energy and that health and keep the health up much more efficiently. The only weakness mainly is those bubbles, which we have the miner to take care of. Damn it.
Those oculists are scanning for targets.
Because this build relies on being invisible whenever we are kind of caught without it, it's very much like we were caught with our pants down. It's not exactly fun. You annoy me too.
The sentient is onto you. Look out for troopers. The longer you hold out, the deeper I can search.
All
You
right.
need to leave.
And for some
Extraction
reason,
is
there is no... Oh, there he is.
All manner of Orican technology may work here due to the circular.
And that is why Roar.
If you have a necromech.
He literally died to the status effect. Alright, now let's go back and talk about the build for the nerds who have stuck around and want to see how this whole thing is put together.
Void signatures, but outside the corrupted.
Be sure
They
to
are
take
draining your
advantage
life
of the
support
extra
and
50%
fast.
movement speed
Eliminate
that you get when you are in your fourth, because that is something that the game is not very good at explaining, that you do gain that 50% when you go down on all fours, as well as you also gain stacking damage bonuses. That is what that multiplier was underneath the claw marks to mark how many, pardon me, how many attacks I have. And that multiplier stacks at an extra 900% damage, and it gives you extra critical chance and a little bit of extra critical damage multiplier as well. So that will allow your claws to deal tons of crits and deal lots of critical damage. As well as if you are invisible while in your 4, you are guaranteed to hit for crits. So it makes for a very, very, very lovely combination. Real quick to kick things off, we are going to talk Archon shards. Very straightforward for these guys here. We are rocking two Amber Archon shards for the 75% extra casting speed, because casting speed matters when you are Voruna, and it also affects the speed of which you pounce on your enemies. And we are running 3 Archon shards for ability strength. That's going to give us an extra 45%. And it's going to give us a total out of 274% ability strength once Arcane Crypt Secular is triggered while we are invisible with her first. On to the build itself. In the aura slot, we are rocking Mecha Empowered, where the squad deals 150% extra damage towards marked targets that are marked by the set bonus. Companion marks a target every 15 seconds for 12 seconds, and killing the target applies their status effects to all enemies within 30 meters, and that also applies to all the damage that you have dealt with those status effects as well. So the more damage you deal with those status effects, the more likely it is to chain and kill more enemies down the chain. We are going to be using Preparation in the Exilis mod slot to start with 100% of our maximum energy. And as I learned from the last video of which I utilized this mod, somebody had said that you can get away with a rank 8 Preparation mod and still get the full energy bonus, which if you are struggling for endo or you can't afford a fully max Preparation, then do a rank 8 and you'll get a similar result. For our augment, we're going to be running All Friends Endurance. This is going to allow me to maintain our 4 without having to recast it, aside from having to recast Roar, which is about the only downside to that, because you do lose out on that multiplier. But this does allow you to try and keep that multiplier up and get it higher for longer. We're going to be using Mecha Pulse as well to help bolster that set bonus, which is going to give us that full 15 seconds for 12 and that full 30-meter range. Prime Continuity for ability duration. This is going to affect Roar and our first in order for us to have a longer time of invisibility and a longer damage bonus. Rolling Guard to help get rid of status effects and help keep us alive a little bit longer, although I did a fantastic job of that. Precision Intensify to make our 4th even stronger and give us an extra 90% ability strength. Blind Rage for that 99% ability strength and that 55% negative efficiency. Equilibrium for the health to energy and energy to health conversions. Very good for energy production. And finally, Primed Flow, because let's be real, Voruna Prime's energy capacity still sucks. And to help combat that as well, we're also going to be using Arcane Universal Fallout, which gives us up to a 60% chance for enemies to drop a health orb on death, of which is very convenient because with Fangs of Rakesh, we deal exactly 10 stacks of every element that we dish out of the 5 that are selected. And then finally, of course, as I've mentioned, Arcane Crypt Secular, which gives us 30% more ability strength and 3 times final critical damage. Onto our Miter. Very simplistic, very straightforward. We're using this for pretty much one reason and one reason only, and that is to pop those very annoying nullifier bubbles, as we want to try and maintain at least some of our bonuses for as long as we possibly can. So we are going to be using Neutralizing Justice, which gives us a 90% chance to destroy nullifier fields, and with tons of multi-shot, that pretty much gets pushed to 100%. And we're going to be bolstering that multi-shot with Vigilante and Split Chamber. We're going to be using Prime Shred and Speed Trigger for more fire rate, and Amalgam Serration for the extra sprint speed. We've also got Primary Dexterity on here, as this is also a utility for a lot of my melee builds. So that's also going to give us an extra 7.5 seconds of melee combo duration. Now for my secondary, we are going to be using the Epitaph, which is set to its primer configuration at the moment with a very high status chance, but I'm only doing this for basically 2 reasons, and that's going to be the Augur set for a little bit of energy spent on abilities because it's converted to shields, and Amalgam Barrel Diffusion for the extra dodge speed. And then finally, for even more velocity and parkour speed, we have the Velocitas or the Praedos. And that's used for 2 reasons and 2 reasons alone. Evolution 2, sprint speed and the slide, and Evolution 4, the parkour velocity. Moving on to the companion of choice, it was my Cerberus, which is a 4x4 Vizer Predasite. And it is modded with Resourceful Retriever for the extra 18% chance to double my resource pickups. Momentous Bond to give him more elemental damage. This will help trigger the Mecha set more frequently. Mecha Recharge for that shield recharge rate. And again, same thing. Volatile Predasite. This is a very important one, as this will help us spread viral damage, and part of the reason why I went with the Vizer Predasite, but I think this can be applied to all of them. And every 15 seconds, it spits out a maggot that latches onto the nearest enemy, drawing fire from those within 40 meters. And on death, the maggot bursts, dealing 100% of accumulated damage into viral damage. And plus 40% more if the enemy dies while lashed to those within 10 meters. So this is very good for spreading that viral status effect and giving us that primer. As well as Acidic Spittle, which every 5 seconds they spit acidic tar at an enemy within 30 meters, blinding them for 12 seconds and dealing 120 corrosive damage. Fetch for the pickup range. Primed Animal Instinct, Synth Fiber, very straightforward things there. Medipet Kit, and Contagious Bond for even more status effects to stack on enemies. And finally, last but not least, we have the claws. We are going with bite for the extra critical chance and critical damage, even though the critical chance doesn't really matter. When he does finally hit a crit, it does deal a lot of damage. For the last piece of the Mecha set, Mecha Overdrive, to add primary status chance to the weapon and status duration. Venom Teeth for the toxin and status chance. Radar Claws for the radiation and critical damage. Precision Conditioning, which will convert 385% of my melee damage into slash damage, which is very useful. Frostjaw for the cold addition and the extra status chance as well. This will give us viral damage. Bloodthirst to give him some health, which will stack very nicely with Precision Conditioning. And finally, Call of the Week, which will give us extra damage on non-critical damage hits, which are pretty frequent with this particular companion. Alright, that is going to be all for this build. I do hope you guys have enjoyed. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment if you have any feedback or things to add to it. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and hit that notification button if you want to be notified whenever my videos go live, as my upload schedule can be a bit sporadic. And I will see you guys in the next build video. Deadshot, over and out.